Hello there everybody and welcome back to Movie Squirm. Today I'm going to be ranking the Omen franchise. We've got 6 movies to talk about here, and with the release of the first Omen just last week, I decided to go and watch all of these movies leading up to it and review them on this channel. So if you want to check out my Omen reviews, I'll leave them in the link down below and you can check out my in-depth thoughts and stuff. I had a good time with this franchise. I didn't really hate any of these movies. I really did dislike one of them, but we'll get into that in just a second. So don't forget to leave your thoughts and ranking of the Omen franchise down below, and I'll get back to you all, I promise. So coming up in last place, in 6th place, is going to be... Coming in 6th place, we do have The Omen for The Awakening. Now, this is a made-for-TV movie. I believe they were going to do a trilogy of these things, and this one just got such a poor reception that they decided to scrap that idea, and I think that was the right decision, really. This follows a lot of same story beats as the original Omen. It's basically the same sort of movie, but instead of having Damien, they have Delia, a female, in this film. But everything is just Omen light. Everything is downgraded. So it just makes you feel like, what is the point here? I mean, even some of the evil stuff Delia is getting into here, instead of sort of killing people or making evil stuff happen, she's kind of hitting people with lunchboxes. She doesn't help her mother up at one point, and she's shooing a few Christian door knockers. That's the type of stuff you get in here. And even when the kills do happen, they're kind of cut away. They're nothing really to get excited about. And even the acting and everything in this movie is just... it's just the most generic acting you've ever seen. I mean, no one puts a good performance in here, apart from Michael Lerner, who you'll know from Blank Check or Elf. He was the only standout character, and you can tell why he went on to be in a lot of movies, even if it was as a side character. But everyone else was just so dull in this movie, and the lines of dialogue they were given, I mean, this mother hires 2 people to find out about her daughter, and they are killed in freak accidents. And then she goes and tells her husband, they were killed in freak accidents. And he goes, oh, really? Well, them things happen all the time. And then just gets on with his life. I didn't feel the evil force of Delia here. There was no dark aurora surrounding her like it was with Harvey Stevens in the first film or anything. It was just a pretty dull movie to get through that I just didn't really enjoy. They have a little pick up at the last 20 minutes where it tries to relate to the first Omen movie a little bit there, but apart from that and Michael Lerner, they're the only positives I can give it. So in 6th place is Omen for The Awakening. Coming in 5th place is going to be the Omen remake from 2006. Now, I did quite enjoy this film, but it just loses massive points for something I'm going to get to in a minute. But I think this was a well-classed movie. You got Liev Schreiber and Julia Stiles leading the line here. You got Pete Postlethwaite and Dave Thewlis thrown in there. So it had all that going for it. I think this movie was very nicely shot. It's a very crisp-looking reimagining of the first movie. I think there's some cool death scenes in here, and a lot of it was entertaining enough. Mia Farrow, who plays Mrs. Baylock in this movie, was fantastic. Arguably, I think I may have preferred her to Billy Whitelaw's character in the first film, and she is a standout character for me in that film, so I do think Mia Farrow did enhance that a little bit. But this movie, like I said, just loses a lot of points for retreading the first film and doing exactly the same thing. This is a shot-for-shot remake with a couple of little changes here and there. I just felt like I'd seen this movie a few days before when I watched the original. I mean, even the dialogue is the same in some places. I knew exactly what was going to happen in every single scene, which took away any tension whatsoever. And I just thought, what was the point in that? If you're going to remake something, please do it a little bit differently and surprise the audience. Have your take on it and change it up a bit. There were so many things that we could have done differently here, but I think the only little things that I noticed was when Damien's mother was actually killed by Mia Farrow in this movie, Mrs. Baylock. They changed that to, instead of pushing her out the window, it became an air bubble. And that was the biggest change in the movie, really, which I did like that death scene, I'm not going to lie. But even the nanny jumping out the window and she says, "It's all for you, Damien," and she jumps and hangs herself. I mean, David Thewlis, who plays Keith, the photographer in this movie, is decapitated like the first movie. I was just thinking, why? Why did you do this? It just was a wasted opportunity, I thought. If you're going to remake The Omen, don't make the exact same film. I know the Psycho remake suffered from this as well, and a few other remakes have. I do like remakes. There's a lot I like more than the original, to be honest. But just don't do it shot for shot. I mean, come on. Seriously. So in fifth place is The Omen from 2006. Coming in fourth place, it might be a surprise to some, but that is the latest kid on the block, the first Omen. Now, I know a lot of people enjoyed this movie, but for me, I just found it a bit of a slog. Now, don't get me wrong, Arkasha Davidson on her directional debut put in some really nice visuals here, I thought. Each scene looked a little bit different with what it was trying to do. And I thought she'd done well with the creepy imagery and the death scenes as well. Even one that kind of copied the first Omen, she still enhanced it a little bit to make me go, what the fuck? You know, so I thought she'd done a good job. I think in future she does have a bright career ahead of her. She is definitely a talented director. Nell Tigerfree, who is the protagonist in this movie, is another massive positive with this film. She's kind of this like meek character who's got a bit of a side to it as well, but she's going through a really hellish journey here, and you kind of grab on and latch on and hope she gets through it. Really, she goes through some really bad stuff in this film. There's a good few twists and turns along the way, but ultimately I just found this to be a long drawn out movie that just kind of builds up and doesn't really go anywhere, to be honest. And when it does, it's kind of just the last 45 minutes of the original Omen movie, where David Warner and Gregory Peck are finding out all these facts about Damien and his original child that they killed and the jackal. It's that, but on screen. I knew exactly where the movie was going to go, apart from the other little twists and turns I talk about there. When it was coming to the climax, I knew where this movie was going to end, and I just knew the story. I mean, it's basically just telling us everything we already know, and even the impactful ending where we basically get, that it's Damien. I mean, if you've watched Omen 3, The Final Conflict, that doesn't even matter anyway to me. It loses all the impact because you know how Damien's journey ends, and it doesn't really matter. So, while I appreciated the directional qualities here and some cool death scenes and stuff, I was really disappointed with this film, guys. Now, I do want to rewatch it just to make sure, because a lot of people are raving about this movie and saying it's one of the best films of the year. So I'm going to give it another go at some point. But for now, I just wasn't really into this movie, unfortunately. It just took a very long-ass time to get where it was going, and it was just a little bit boring. But it's not a shot-for-shot remake of The Omen, so it's higher on the list. Next up, we do have Damien Omen 3, The Final Conflict. Now, this is seeing Damien at the height of his power, at a more adult version of himself now, where he's in with the president and everything. He's running Thorn Industries. He is really on the brink of world domination, which is what his main goal has been since the original movie, really. And I think Sam Neill done okay in this film. It's a breakout role for him. He's only really starred in movies in like New Zealand and stuff before this, but this was his first big international role. And when he's playing Damien kind of normally, I think it's a good transition from the first two movies into this one, and it makes it believable. However, when he's doing a few monologues here and there or speeches to all his followers, it does come off a little bit cheesy, but overall, it's not too bad.
I stand before you in the name of the one who was cast out from heaven, but is alive. in me.
Now, I like the story direction in this one, because the first two movies do a lot of similar story beats, but in this one we have these priests who already know about Damien, and they've got the 7 daggers of Megiddo, and they're going to try and take turns to assassinate Damien and take him out once and for all, because Christ's second coming is about to happen. The stars have aligned and they want to take Damien out before Christ gets back on earth. So it's a cool little concept. I don't think it's executed all that well though. These priests are the worst assassins in the world. Like, it's just failed attempt after failed attempt. And after about 3 of these priests dying, I kind of thought it was laughable. But there are some hard-hitting moments in this movie, especially when Damien thinks that Christ has been born between 12 a.m. and 6 a.m. in the morning, and he orders his apostles, these devil worshippers, go out and kill all these newborn babies in the world. So as a father now, that one was quite hard hit, and I don't like seeing newborn babies get harmed and stuff. I mean, there are off screen and stuff, but it's what you don't see, you know. There's like a priest who is really a devil worshipper suffocating a baby at one point in this movie. So it does go for it in terms of, you know, showing how evil Damien really is. It's a little bit of a slower paced movie, which I didn't mind, but some people might find that a little bit boring compared to the first 2 movies. But overall, I think this is fine. The ending is terrible though, after this long build up of Damien on his journey. It's a very anticlimactical ending, but overall, I don't mind Damien the Omen 3, The Final Conflict. It's fine. That is in 3rd place. Next up, we have Damien the Omen 2, which is a horror sequel to a classic movie, and sometimes this didn't quite work, did it? I mean, look at The Exorcist 2, probably one of the worst movies. In fact, it is the worst movie I've ever seen. But this one was quite a surprising sequel the first time I watched it a few years ago, and upon rewatch, I quite enjoyed it once again. I think seeing Damien in this military school and starting to get a grip of Thorn Industries and start to come into adulthood a little bit there is all interesting. He's got these apostles working behind the scenes in Lance Henriksen and stuff, you know, helping him out and stuff to get where he wants to go. And it does show the true evil side of Damien in this movie when he's got this closest one to him in Mark, his cousin, but that is not going to stop him from world domination when Mark discovers his true identity and stuff. So it just shows to the levels he will go to get what he wants, basically. I mean, I think there's some real cool death scenes in this. This movie reminded me of Final Destination a lot. Now, I know Final Destination came a lot after it, but it's people finding out about Damien and then meeting a grisly demise, really. There's a woman whose eyes are poked out by a crow in this film. There's a guy who goes into this elevator and he's about to go and check the bloods of Damien because he believes that there's something not quite right with it. And there's great tension music building up to his death scene. And the music works really well in this. It's incorporated really well into the scenes. And then this elevator shaft gets chopped in half with his body, you know, just basically sliced in 2 there. I think that's a great death scene and doesn't get talked about enough within the horror community. I think it's one of the best death scenes I've ever seen. I think it has a good twist ending, which I didn't see coming. The second time I watched it, I totally forgot about that. And I think it's a fun enough movie. It's a very well-paced film. It's enjoyable from start to finish. My only problems with it really is it does do a lot of what the first film does. It's basically just people finding out about Damien and then meeting their end, basically, and so on, repeat the cycle. But I would be lying if I said that it wasn't a fun movie, because it was. It was between this and The Final Conflict, which was second, but I just edged it with this one. I think this one's got more rewatchability, and it flowed a little bit quicker there. And Jonathan Scott Taylor, who plays Damien in this movie, I thought he'd done a great job, transitioning from Harvey Stevens' character in the first film to make it more believable being the same kid in this one. And as the movie goes on, he sort of grows into his role even more of being the Satan's son, basically. So yeah, it's a pretty solid sequel. That is Damien the Omen 2. In first place, though, we do have the original classic from 1976, The Omen, basically telling the story of this kid who has been adopted by these political figures, really, the British ambassador, and weird shit starts to happen around this kid. Like when he goes to the zoo, the animals are going ape shit and basically also running away from him because they sense something there. And at his 5th birthday party, his nanny actually hangs herself in front of the entire party, and you know, things just start to elevate from there.
Look at me, Damien. It's all for you.
I thought there was some great performances in this movie from Lee Remick and Gregory Peck, who played these adopted parents. And that moment where the nanny hangs herself and Lee Remick just pulls that shocked face, that is a great horror movie image, I think. I just relate that image to this movie so much. The first thing I think of when I think of The Omen. Great performances all round. Billy Whitelaw, who plays this nanny who's coming to protect Damien. You know, I thought she put in a very sinister performance there. And we've got Harvey Stevens, who kind of has this dark atmosphere surrounding him every time he's on screen. You know, David Warner in there. It's a great cast of characters. And there's some real what the fuck moments as well. Not just the nanny hanging herself, but we got that big spire going through the priest there, who's trying to warn Richard... Robert Thorne about his adopted child. We've got David Warner's decapitation scene. Every time that scene is about to happen, I'm like, oh, here it comes. Great practical effects. The first hour of this movie absolutely flies by. I mean, I think it's perfect, the first hour. My real gripe with it is the second half of the movie. It seems to take longer than the first hour. It's a kind of a fact-finding adventure where they keep finding out about Damien and these little things of where he came from, much to the realization of Robert Thorne that his kid might be actually the Antichrist. But apart from that, I don't really have too many complaints about this film. I think it's an absolute staple in horror history, an absolute horror classic, and one of the greatest horror movies ever made. So, in first place is The Omen. Okay guys, hope you all enjoyed this ranking video. Please give me your ranking down below and tell me what you think of the Omen franchise. Some of you might even have the first Omen in number 1. Who knows? You know, I've seen a few people say they like it a little better than the original, so it'll be interesting to see. Thanks so much, guys. If you like horror, please give this video a like and subscribe to this channel. It really helped me out. You take care, and I'll see you on the next video.